Hey everybody, it's Lon.TV, and we've never really thought of Chromebooks as gaming devices before, but Lenovo is trying out something new here with this gaming Chromebook. This is their IdeaPad 5 gaming Chromebook, and it integrates a 16-inch display that runs at 120 Hz. But the games don't run locally on the laptop, but rather you stream them from streaming services like Geforce Now or Xbox Live or Amazon Luna. And we'll try out all of that stuff and see how well it might run a few games locally in just a second. But I do want to let you know, in the interest of full disclosure, that this is on loan from Lenovo. So when we're done with this, it goes back to them. All the opinions you're about to hear are my own. No one is paying for this review, nor has anyone reviewed or approved what you're about to see before it was uploaded. So let's get into it now and see what this Chromebook is all about. Now, the one we're looking at today is a lower-end model. This one has an i3 processor on board. Lenovo is currently selling an i5 unit for $599 with similar specifications beyond the processor to what we have here. Now, this one has an i3 1215U processor on board. The i5 version has a 1235U, and from the specifications, it looks as though the i5 variant has better graphical capabilities than this i3 does, and we'll see perhaps how that other one might perform a little better when we get to our graphical benchmarks in a little bit. But for game streaming, the i3 is going to work out fine, and as you'll see in a few minutes, it does very well at all the things a Chromebook does. So for those of you looking to save a little bit and just want the nice big screen here, I think you might be able to get by with that i3. This has 8 gigabytes of RAM and 128 gigabytes of eMMC storage. Not the fastest storage in the world, of course, and of course gaming laptops have much faster NVMe storage on board. The display, though, is pretty nice. A 16-inch display running at 2560 by 1600. It is an IPS display. It is not a touchscreen, though, and it is a 16 by 10 aspect ratio. It'll go flat to the desk here, as you can see. It runs at 120 Hertz, but it has a 9 millisecond response rate, which is a little on the slower side for gaming, so you might see a little bit of ghosting when you have fast motion on screen. It looked fine to me as I was playing around with it, but I'm sure gamers out there might notice a little bit of that. It covers 100% of the sRGB color gamut, and it runs at 350 nits of brightness. And for the price point, it's actually a pretty nice display that they were able to work into this device. Now, it's got a really nice webcam here, as you can see. It runs at 1080p. It delivers a really nice image, I think, even though my mug tends to ruin some of these demonstrations. And you also have a manual shutter here over the lens to block the camera when you're not using it. So all in for conferencing and that sort of thing. I think it'll do quite well there. It's pretty well built. It weighs about 4.01 pounds or 1.82 kilograms. That's not unusual given the larger size of this laptop. It is mostly plastic, although the top of the lid here is metal. And you saw earlier how that can open up all the way here. Although, as you'll see, when you do pull the lid up, the keyboard tends to go with it, so you will need to open it up with 2 hands there. As far as ports are concerned, you do get a bunch of them on here. You've got a full-service USB Type-C port right here. This will do power in, display out, and USB data devices. This is a Gen 2 port, so it runs at 10 gigabits per second, but this does not support Thunderbolt or the new USB 4 standard. You've got another USB 3 port here. This is a Gen 1 port, headphone microphone jack here. You also have a SD card reader to augment its onboard storage. On the other side, you've got another USB 3 port and another full-service USB Type-C port. So you can charge it from either side or hook 2 displays up to it if you want. And then, of course, you've got your Kensington lock over here to lock it down on a desk. This is not a fanless device, so you'll want to keep the bottom of this clear. They do have some nice rubber feet here to keep it off the surface of the desk. The fan noise on this isn't bad. Most of the time, you're not going to be doing enough to trigger it into having to run that fan too frequently. You might hear it running a little bit more when you first get it because it does have to go through all of its updates and installs to sync up your Google account. One thing it lacks, though, is any kind of biometrics, so you don't get a fingerprint reader or facial recognition here, so you're going to have to type in your passcode or PIN number every time you want to get into the computer. Now the keyboard on this, like most Lenovo laptops, feels pretty nice. You've got some large, well-spaced keys here. They definitely made use of all of the real estate they have on this large keyboard deck. And you also get a number pad here. So if you're crunching a lot of numbers, you have the ability to crunch those numbers with a proper number pad, although the number keys are a little smaller than the other keys here on the keyboard. And as you can see here, you have a color backlight where you can change the color of the keyboard. This is a multi-zone backlight with 4 different zones, but I couldn't figure out a way to assign a specific zone to a specific part of the keyboard. So to get a multicolor effect, you have to select the rainbow option here in the settings, but you can't specify how that rainbow looks at the moment. But you can very quickly swap out different colors just by selecting this here. They also have an option that will try to match the keyboard color to what you have for a wallpaper currently on the display. So kind of a neat little feature, something we haven't seen on a Chromebook before, but it doesn't have the same type of granularity that you would get on a Windows laptop. Now up here you've got your speaker grill, and it has 4 speakers, 2 watts each. They sound pretty good. Not a lot of deep bass out of it, but they're crisp and clear and loud with good stereo separation. Certainly good for listening to music for a little bit, but I think headphones will sound a little better, but definitely good for conferences and spoken word kinds of stuff. The only thing I'm not crazy about is the trackpad here. It does feel a little on the spongier side to me, and I've seen Lenovo put together better trackpads in the past. But overall, a very nice keyboard here and something that I think goes well beyond gaming in its functionality. So let's take a look now and see how it performs. We'll load up the Chrome web browser first to see some basic activities here, web browsing. And as you can see, it very quickly renders pages on screen. This is what I would expect out of a current i3 processor, and all in a pretty nice and snappy overall experience here, just doing the basics by browsing the web, but pulling up video and that sort of thing as well. One thing you'll notice when you have a display that runs at 120 Hertz is that it feels a little faster because everything animates smoother with more frames of animation. So as you maximize and minimize windows or even just load up apps, it just feels more responsive because the display really is that much more responsive versus a 60 Hertz display that's on most Chromebooks like this. And a little bit earlier, we ran some 4K 60 frames per second video from my YouTube channel. It played back just fine with no drop frames. Everything was perfect there. And that's what you want to see, of course, on a modern Intel processor. One note, though, is that if you are watching Netflix and Disney Plus and some of the other premium streaming services, you'll want to use the Chrome browser to watch video from those services. You will also have the option through the Google Play Store to install the Android version of Netflix and others, but those Android apps cannot play high-definition video on Chromebooks, so the visual quality on the Android app will be less than what you'll get out of the browser. So stick to the browser whenever you can for the best image quality, especially on this large display. And on the browserbench.org speedometer benchmark test running in Google Chrome, we got a score of 229, which is right in line with scores we've seen from other Intel processors from this generation. So let's take a look at its marketed purpose, which is streaming games from various services. And we're going to start off with Geforce now. In full disclosure, NVIDIA provided me with a free 3080 account that I use in my reviews because we do look at game streaming quite frequently on this channel when we're looking at laptops. And I paired up my Xbox controller to the Chromebook here for testing. Now this is the 3080 tier, which allows for you to connect essentially to a 3080 gaming PC that is in NVIDIA's data center. And this will allow for faster frame rates up to 120 Hertz. But there's a couple of things to know. The first thing is that you have to own the games in Steam or Epic or Ubisoft in order to play them. Secondly, not every game you own is going to be available to you through the service because not all developers are comfortable allowing people to stream their games even if they paid for them. So if you've got a big Steam or Epic library, you're going to notice that not every game is available to you there. You'll find a good amount, but I would definitely suggest you go to the NVIDIA GeForce Now website to see what games are available there. And remember, you have to buy them because the service you're paying for is just for the streaming component here, not the games themselves. Another thing you should do before you start off is go into the settings menu here and set your settings here to custom, because by default it was not going up to the full 120 frames per second. So I set that here in streaming quality by selecting custom. I left the bit rate at auto, but you can also lock that in too if you're comfortable with the available bandwidth on your Wi-Fi in this instance. So I've got mine right now set to 50 megabits per second. I have a Wi-Fi 6 access point in the ceiling, and this is right underneath it, so I should be fine. There's nobody home right now, so we shouldn't have any competition for the bandwidth here. But you'll probably find that your mileage will vary greatly based on your particular Wi-Fi situation in your home. They do recommend Ethernet for the best results, and of course you can plug in an Ethernet dongle into one of the USB ports on here to get a much more reliable connection. And also note, this will consume a lot of bandwidth. So at my current setting here, I'm being warned that it's going to consume approximately 20 gigabytes per hour. But now that I've got that all dialed in, let's go over to the games here. I'm just going to load up my favorite game right now, which is No Man's Sky. And what this is going to do is spin up an instance in the cloud of this game. And what it's going to do is actually download my save game from my Steam Deck and sync it up so I can play it right where I left off. So we're going to now click continue here. I do have to do a couple of things to get into the game. So let me do that real quick and we'll jump back and see how it performs. All right, so we've got the game loaded up here and it seems to be playing back just fine. One thing to note is that I cannot pull up a statistics page to confirm that we're getting the 120 hertz performance here, but I can tell you it feels pretty smooth, and I can pull up a setting here to confirm that I am running at the settings that I had set things to. So here we are at 50 megabits per second, 2560 by 1600, and running at 120 hertz. And the game settings were also set properly on NVIDIA's side. And the game seems to be running fine. I'm getting rumble on my controller here. Again, no lag or anything that I can detect. Very smooth playback here. And all in, it is a good gaming experience. You do, of course, get a little bit of input lag with any of these streaming services, so just be ready for that. But I think for this game, which is not as critical to be precise with your button pushes, it actually looks and plays pretty nice. And I really do like how Steam is able to sync everything up for me when I jump from one device to another like this. And all in, looks great and plays great. And that is what I would expect out of a gaming Chromebook that is designed for game streaming like this one. Now this will also work with Xbox Cloud Gaming, and like the GeForce Now service, you access it through the web browser. And what I'm going to do here is install the Xbox Cloud Gaming web app. And what this will do is not give me the Android version of the app, but actually a web wrapper, exactly what we were running with the GeForce Now service a minute ago. So you get a full screen app-like experience here, but it's actually just using a web browser without all the other stuff around it. And what I'm going to do here is just load up Forza Horizon 5. And it was not detecting my controller initially, but I pushed the button here and now it has detected everything. So let's let this spin up, and when it's ready, we'll take a look and see how the Xbox games play on it. All right, so here we are. Forza Horizon 5 seems to be running pretty nicely here, just like we saw on the GeForce Now service. One thing to keep in mind with the Microsoft service, though, is that it doesn't stream at as high a bitrate or resolution as GeForce Now does, so it won't look quite as good on this big screen, but it's still, I think, more than adequate, especially if you wanted to play your games on the go. Now, like the GeForce Now service, this will sync up with Xbox, so when I go back upstairs to my Xbox, this game will be right where I left it. Now, you'll notice it's not currently full screen, so you just have to go into this menu here and select full screen, and now you will get a full screen image here. Now we do have some letterboxing here because these Xbox games run at, I believe, 720p right now, so you will have a 16:9 aspect ratio on this 16:10 display. But looks great, plays great, syncs up with everything, and is working as expected here. The Xbox Cloud Gaming at the moment doesn't support 120 hertz, so you won't get the most out of the display here, but it does seem to run just fine. One more service, though, to check out, and that is Amazon Luna. Now, if you have an Amazon Prime account, you have access to a rotating library of games on the Luna service. This one is an action RPG called Thymesia, I believe, and it looks and plays pretty good here. Now, Luna is limited to 1080p at 60 frames per second at the time I'm recording this video, but it looks pretty good, and it plays pretty good here, at least in my testing so far. And I think any streaming service that you throw at this device is going to perform like you just saw these last three services perform. It is pretty good for what it is designed for here, which is game streaming. And if you find yourself doing a lot of that and you like the simplicity of a Chromebook, I think this will handle everything quite well with a nice big 16-inch display. Although at the moment, only the Geforce Now service will be able to take advantage of the frame rate and resolution that this display can support. Now, there are some other subscription tiers on Luna, but those subscription tiers also perform at the same resolution and frame rate. Now, as I mentioned earlier, you can install Android apps on this device through the Google Play Store. This is a game called Horizon Chase that is running quite well, as you can see. But not all Android games, in my experience, have worked well with Intel-based processors. So, for example, I tried to install Genshin Impact, and although it loaded up, it was crashing when it was downloading all of its data. I also tried Call of Duty Mobile, and that one had some issues getting up and running on here as well. And I think it might be due to the fact that this is running with an Intel processor, and a lot of Android games are targeting ARM hardware. So your experience with the Android game library will be limited, I think, to a lot of the more casual games like this one, but those games will run quite well on here. Many of them support game controllers, and you'll get a nice big screen performance out of those games here. Now, I also booted up the Dolphin Emulator to see how well it might handle some higher-end emulation. This is the Android version of Dolphin, and I loaded up Burnout 2, I believe, here. And we're running at about 60 frames per second, pretty much at full speed. And as you can see, the game is pretty responsive here. My game controller is working with it. So I think if you're looking to emulate the GameCube and the Dreamcast and, of course, all of the systems of the 80s and 90s, all of that should work pretty well here, even on the i3 version. Now, on this i3 variant of the laptop, we got a score of 4,516 on the 3D Mark Wildlife Benchmark test. I think you'll get a much better score on the i5 version, and I think it would be closer probably to what you see on the Surface Laptop Go 2 on that chart. All that said, though, if you are looking to download games and play them on your laptop, I think you're going to be much better off getting a Windows laptop versus a Chromebook. I think this Chromebook is best suited for people who like to stream games every once in a while, but really prefer Chrome OS to Windows for its simplicity. But again, gamers are going to be certainly much happier getting a Windows laptop from the get-go. Now, Chromebooks also support Linux applications, and we always like to take a look and see how Linux performs on a Chromebook, and this one seems to do just fine with it. So I've got my command line going here. I loaded up Nano, which was a project that my friend Chris Allegretta kicked off. It runs great here. We also have LibreOffice running, which is a really nice office suite that will run locally on this computer, so you don't have to connect to the cloud to do a spreadsheet or a word processing document. And you've got this nice big screen here with tons of real estate, so you can run Linux apps alongside Android apps alongside your Chrome OS browser. And all in from a Linux perspective, it runs pretty nicely. You can also install Steam on here, but remember, we don't have a lot of horsepower on this i3 processor, and you also have some compatibility issues right now with games that were not written for Linux on Steam in this way. They are starting to look at getting Steam ported over to Chromebooks, and that might be something really interesting on the i5 variant of this to talk about in the future. At the moment, though, the beta for that new version of Steam is not yet available on this particular device. Now, as far as battery life is concerned, you can expect about 6 to 7 hours out of this doing basic work with the display brightness turned down a bit. If you are gaming locally on the device, that of course will negatively impact battery life overall. The end of support date on this Chromebook is in 2030, and every Chromebook kind of has an expiration date where it no longer gets updates. So this one will be updated through June of 2030, but after that, it will not receive any updates, even though it will continue to operate. So overall, even though they call this a gaming Chromebook, I think it's just a good Chromebook overall. It's got a very nice large display that runs at a decent resolution, so you get a good quality image out of it. I really like the webcam here running at 1080p. You've got the number pad on the keyboard. It performs very well, and it's not all that expensive for what you're getting here. And I think a lot of folks are looking for a large screen Chromebook that doesn't have a lot of compromises, and this one certainly delivers. As far as the gaming aspect is concerned, it streams games quite well, but most Chromebooks do. But of course, you do have the 120 Hz if you are a Geforce Now subscriber. That might be of interest to some, but I think overall its features as a general Chromebook actually outweigh its marketed purpose as a gaming device. So if you were looking for a large screen Chromebook that is decent, definitely take a look at this one, because I think it's an attractive unit for people that are looking for a larger Chrome OS device. That's going to do it for now. Until next time, this is Lon.TV. Thanks for watching.
This channel is brought to you by the Lon.TV supporters, including gold level supporters Brian Parker, Chris Allegretta, Hot Sauce and Video Games, Logic KGR, Tom Albrecht, and Amda Brown. If you want to help the channel, you can by contributing as little as $1 a month. Head over to lon.tv/support to learn more. And don't forget to subscribe. Visit lon.tv/s.